Get to Old Navy now, because this week only there's a new red hot deal every single day. Plus up to 50% off store-wide. That's up to 50% off your favorite Old Navy styles. Also get $10 off your next purchase when you buy online and pick up in store. So hurry in and get today's wow-worthy fashion pieces at a price you won't believe. Only at Old Navy. Valid 7/12 to 19. Select styles only. $10 off valid in-store only. One-time use. Excludes clearance, gift card, register lane items, jewelry.
Football represents something we are.
Football is like life. You gotta push.
Fantasy football is about proving that you are better than your friends.
Hold up.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Faceoff.
I'm gonna do what's best for the team.
Where fantasy meets reality.
Pure fantasy football nirvana.
And now your hosts.
Let the games begin.
Anthony Cervino and Michael Hoff.
And welcome back to the FF Faceoff, where fantasy meets reality. It is always great to have you with us for an absolutely loaded episode of the most dynamic fantasy football podcast on the planet, where fantasy meets reality, and is now part of the brand new full-time fantasy podcast network. And as always, we have a lot to talk about right now. We have a loaded show on the docket. We will take a stroll around the NFL and talk about the latest news, rumors, and storylines from around the league.
Well, I want all of you peons to stand up on your feet and show respect to the man who rules the world.
Coming to you live from the FF Faceoff studio at the beautiful Jersey Shore, I am your host, Anthony Cervino. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru, and don't forget to follow the show at the FF Faceoff as well. You can find us on all the top social media platforms. If you're watching right now on YouTube, Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitter, or Twitch, welcome to the big show. And if you're joining us right now in podcast format on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Podcast, Amazon Alexa, TuneIn, or Apple Podcast, thanks for stopping by. But before we get into the action, here is a public service announcement from His Lordship.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Alright guys, if you like today's episode and subscribe to the channel, please leave us a comment saying that you have subscribed, and once you're done, we will reply back to as many as we can to show our appreciation to you. I always like to remind you that we are a cost-free production here at the FF Faceoff, but just because we are a cost-free production, it doesn't mean that a lot of time doesn't go into our efforts in terms of preparation, pre-production, post-production, and research. And because we do bring you cost-free programming, all we ask for in return is for some cost-free engagements and interactions to help us grow our fan base and our community. These engagements and interactions are things that you can do right now as you're watching the show or listening to the show on your podcast platform. Anytime you subscribe and hit the alert icon so you can be notified anytime that we are live or upload. Anytime that you tell all of your family and friends about the show, anytime you leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, it not only helps us grow, but it never goes unnoticed. We see our podcast analytics booming. We see our YouTube analytics slowly trending in the right direction. We would like a bigger stake in the action here on YouTube, but hey, you can't please everybody. So we'd like to thank you right now for all of your past engagements and interactions, and we would like to thank you ahead of time for any engagements and interactions that you may do in the future. And before I forget, if you ever want to skip the public service announcement and jump to a certain talking point or segment, go to the description, check out the timestamps. If you're using a desktop device, click on the timestamp link, but if you're using a mobile device, the timestamp links do not work. That is a YouTube problem, not a me problem, so please take it up with them and not me. but it doesn't mean that the timestamps are useless. All you have to do is open up your video player or your podcast player, take the scroll bar, drag it to the time that you want to go to, and boom, you're where you need to, you are where you want to go. Everybody wins. Now that that's all the way, let's get right into the action. Okay, so today we are going to do a news and rumors roundup. We have been bringing you these type of shows weekly, and we may be bringing you these type of shows more frequently as we get closer to the NFL season and through the season, because, we are roughly a week and a half, 2 weeks away from training camp, and we have our biggest breaking storyline that actually happened early this morning, right around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And this actually broke while I was at the gym and then leaving the gym, and I consumed a lot of opinions and takes and reactions, because in this business, this is what we do. This is why I say the show's mantra is where fantasy meets reality, because we're not just stats and numbers and fantasy. We will talk a lot of NFL and NFL storylines and NFL contracts, and of course the news is Melvin Gordon. ESPN's Adam Schefter is reporting that Melvin Gordon, Chargers running back, has informed the team that he will not report to camp, and he will demand a trade unless he receives a new contract prior to the start of the 2019 season. I don't know if I saw this coming, because we didn't hear a lot about Melvin Gordon this offseason. I believe that Melvin Gordon was intending to wait for Ezekiel Elliott to get paid. This way, Melvin Gordon could try to garner a bigger payday. However, all the reports that we have seen suggested that Zeke isn't going to get a new deal this offseason, especially with his little run-in with the law. And although he is going to clear a suspension, he is not going to get any type of ban, there is still a concern with Ezekiel Elliott's off-the-field issues, which puts even more leverage to Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. So, Melvin Gordon now, his agent makes it official, tells the NFL Network that yes, this is true. Melvin Gordon is threatening a holdout unless he gets a new deal, and he will want to get traded if he doesn't get a new deal. And my instant reaction is to call his bluff. I understand that Melvin Gordon is one of the best running backs in the NFL. Is he a top 4 guy? Absolutely not. I don't believe, and you can dispute this, I don't believe Melvin Gordon is a top 4, top 5 running back. Look at the top 4 and top 5 backs. Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. You want to throw Saquon Barkley in there after a year? You can absolutely do that. Who's the 5th? Could it be Le'Veon Bell? It could be David Johnson. With the top 4, with Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley, they don't have an injury blemish on their resume. I'd have to go back and check, but I don't believe they missed a regular season game. Le'Veon Bell is the fringe 5th, along with David Johnson. They have, at least in Bell's case, he had a suspension. He's had a holdout. He's had injury issues. And David Johnson, of course, had, missed 15 games 2 years ago with the wrist. Melvin Gordon has repeated history of knee injuries. MCL sprain, hamstring strain, knee strain. He's played 4 years in the league. And aside from 2017, that's the only time he's played in a full 16-game slate. He missed 2 games in 2015, 3 games in 2016, and 4 games last year. Is this a player who is going to go to your owner and send your agent into the owner, especially an owner like Dean Spanos and a general manager like Tom Telesco, who are very smart with how they run their organization and how they spend their money and allocate, the salary cap, how to spend their money to make their cap better and they don't set themselves back. And you're Melvin Gordon, and you've only played 16 games once. Meanwhile, you're chasing money from, I guess you want to chase Le'Veon Bell money, but he's put up elite numbers when he's on the field and healthy and playing in 16 games. You want to chase Ezekiel Elliott money, he's never missed a game and puts up big-time numbers, leads the league in rushing in a heartbeat, is becoming a better pass catcher. I understand that that Melvin Gordon is a productive player, but he's only had one season in 2017 to where he reached the 1,000-yard rushing plateau. He had 1,105 that year. In 2016, he came close with 997, and last year, 885. He's never had north of 490 yards receiving. The good with Melvin Gordon is that since, I believe, 2016, Gordon has had 28 rushing touchdowns, second most in the league, 38 touchdowns from scrimmage, second most in the league, and tied for fourth most receiving touchdowns with 10. The Los Angeles Chargers, they don't care about what he does for his fantasy football owners. They care what he does and what he can do to lead this team into the playoffs and into a Super Bowl. These games missed could cost the Chargers either better playoff positioning, which is important, especially for a team like the Chargers, who need all the home games they can get because they don't play very well when they have to travel to the East Coast. That's why they struggle going to New England and going to Baltimore at times. If I'm a Melvin Gordon fantasy football owner, I wouldn't panic. And if I'm a person drafting, I wouldn't overdraft Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson. Melvin Gordon said that he... I saw a video, I guess this was last year around the time when Le'Veon Bell was sitting out. He said, yeah, sure, I'll sit out. You don't have Le'Veon Bell leverage. Melvin Gordon is on his rookie deal. He hasn't had that big payday to where he can afford to sit out. Moreover, when he starts to get fined for missing time, and let's say he does go into the regular season and hold out, when he doesn't get those weekly game checks, Melvin Gordon will be back. In fact, I don't believe he will miss any time at all. He might sit out training camp and the preseason, but that's something you see a lot of players do, especially a lot of players who are amongst the best in the league. They don't really need to be there for the preseason. They don't get a lot of touches. They don't get a lot of snaps. The games don't matter. So why play and risk injury? Why play and take further toll on your body? So missing camp and preseason, that doesn't really matter. He's been around. He's going into his 5th year. He knows the playbook. He knows what he needs to do. He will be there week 1. So be smart. Don't overreact. Sit tight and continue to draft Melvin Gordon as you would, and continue to draft Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson as you would. Don't reach for these players, because what we see in the fantasy football community is all of a sudden in a week from now, Austin Eckler's ADP is going to be in the 5th round and Justin Jackson's going to be in the 9th. And you're wasting these picks because Melvin Gordon will absolutely positively be on the field in week 1 and ready to go. He is still under contract. He is due $5.6 million, 5th-year option that the team initially picked up. If he did sit out the season, realistically, the Chargers can place the franchise tag on him. And then what? Is he going to sit out a 2nd straight year? No. That's not reality. It's not going to happen. When the Pittsburgh Steelers called Le'Veon Bell's bluff and said, you know what, you hold out. They didn't make the playoffs. They went 9-7. They had other issues, but they banked on James Conner coming off an injury and Jalen Samuels, and they were productive. The Chargers are in a much different place. They have Austin Eckler, who has shown he can get the job done when Melvin Gordon gets hurt and misses time, because that happens. And they also have Justin Jackson, who flashed a little bit during that same time when Melvin Gordon was out last year. The Chargers know they have fallback options. In fact, not only is Melvin Gordon a free agent in 2020, so is Austin Eckler. So they can say, you know what? We're going to pay Austin Eckler at a discounted rate, and you can sit out. Do I believe Melvin Gordon, if he doesn't get a new deal this year, and I don't believe he will, I don't see any way the Chargers give him the type of deal he wants. We can see a situation like Le'Veon Bell, like the Dallas Cowboys did with DeMarco Murray a few years ago. We could see the Chargers just let Melvin Gordon walk or tag him and hope to trade him. And then, re-sign Austin Eckler. You have Justin Jackson on his rookie deal, and the 2020 NFL draft is loaded with running back talent. So, whether or not Melvin Gordon plays for the Los Angeles Chargers in 2019, and for the record, he will, and barring injury, he will be there for a full 16 games, and he will be there in week 1. Whether or not he plays, he will. Can't reiterate that enough. This will be the last year we will see Melvin Gordon with the Los Angeles Chargers. Fantasy football outlook, fantasy football impact. I believe we are going to see much of the same from Melvin Gordon. Last year, 12 games, RB8 in PPR scoring formats. 2017. Finished as the RB5. That's what you're going to get when he plays a full 16. He's a top 5 back, fantasy football-wise. 2016, Melvin Gordon, RB7 in 13 games. And he was pretty good in 2015 as well. You have a top 5 fantasy back right here. Currently, his ADP, he is going as the 6th back off the board. Earlier in the offseason, he was going as the 5th back, but David Johnson, who I have ranked as my RB5, he has taken that place over. And right now, Melvin Gordon is sitting at the RB6, which is right where he should be, ahead of Le'Veon Bell, and ahead of Joe Mixon, although I do believe this could be a breakout year for Joe Mixon. Le'Veon Bell is a little bit risky because because of where he is on the Jets. You know, he played with the Pittsburgh Steelers, top 5 line, Hall of Fame quarterback, elite wide receivers, elite supporting cast, and of course, Le'Veon Bell was productive. With the Jets, Sam Darnold, I like Sam Darnold a lot, but I'm not going to anoint him a Hall of Fame quarterback. Robbie Anderson and Inunwa and Crowder, they aren't Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. You also have the Adam Gase factor, who has criminally underused his past running backs at his other locations. Most recently, Kenyon Drake and the Miami Dolphins. So a lot of negativity to take in consideration with Le'Veon Bell, despite the ceiling. That's why Bell is my 7th back off the board, sometimes 8th to Joe Mixon. Melvin Gordon, if he plays, and he will once again be a top 10 back. Where in the top 10 all depends on his injury durability. If his knees can hold up, you can make the case that Melvin Gordon could be a RB4 or an RB5 if he plays in 16 games. If he misses 2 to 4 games, you can expect Melvin Gordon to finish as anywhere between RB6 and RB10. He will still be the featured back in Los Angeles, with Austin Eckler, being the change of pace option. We spent a lot of time on Melvin Gordon. Let's move on to the other big talking point of today's show, which is Damien Williams. And Damien Williams is a player I am heavily buying into, and I know a lot of people are worried about Damien Williams. Worried because, he was productive, but he was productive for a short period of time. I don't give a damn about that. I've been a Damien Williams guy since the Dolphins. And, I like Damien Williams over Kenyon Drake when he was with the Dolphins. But injuries derailed him, and he ultimately made his way to the Kansas City Chiefs. He got his opportunity, and he shined. People are worried about, Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde is a short yardage plotter, very much replacing Spencer Ware. And we all know what Spencer Ware did or didn't do last year with the Chiefs. And he didn't do much because Damien Williams, even though Spencer Ware got hurt and came back, Damien Williams, he owned that backfield after Kareem Hunt was suspended. The Kansas City Chiefs, they brought in a couple rookies who... Listen, Damien Williams is the RB1, and Andy Reid echoed those sentiments earlier in the week. He told the press that, and I quote, he's taken that challenge, he wants to do his thing, he's earned the right to be that guy, and now it's a matter of production, you gotta do it. I believe Damien Williams, who scored 10 touchdowns over the final 6 games, including the playoffs last season, garnered 17.5 touches per game in that time span. I believe that trend will continue. Now, Carlos Hyde could take some touches, but I believe that Damien Williams is very much the bell cow for the Kansas City Chiefs. Damien Williams is currently being drafted as the 12th running back off the board, right behind Todd Gurley, Dalvin Cook, and James Conner, and right ahead of Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Leonard Fournette. Damien Williams can catch the football. Damien Williams can obviously run. Damien Williams fits into this offense. His supporting cast is as elite as they come. The quarterback won the MVP last year through 50 touchdowns. There is so many positives. Now, he didn't miss a game last year, albeit in limited significant playing time. The last time he missed games for injury, he had a shoulder issue in 2017 while still a member of the Dolphins team. Missed 5 games with that. when Damien Williams played following the Kareem Hunt suspension and the Chiefs released him, from week 14 to week 17, he was the RB8, RB2, RB4, and then week 17 in a game they probably didn't need, RB14. So Damien Williams was a top 15 back to close out the fantasy football campaign. And from weeks 14 to 16, by the way, the fantasy playoffs, he was an RB8 or better. I mean, what more can you ask for? 10 touchdowns in the final 6. I mean, this is a player who fits the scheme. This is a player who can do it all. I was kicking myself when I didn't get him in my Scott Fishbowl 9 draft. He was taking a couple picks ahead of me. I wanted to take him as my second pick to pair him with Ezekiel Elliott. I am extremely high on Damien Williams. I have a ton of Damien Williams stock. And that's not going to change. In the drafts leading up to week 1 moving forward, I am going to continue to aggressively pursue Damien Williams. Damien Williams had 5.7 yards per touch, 5.1 yards per carry, 4.9 true yards per carry, plus 42.5 production premium rating, which was number 2 amongst running backs at Player Profiler. I mean, this guy can do it all. He was number 1 back in terms of game script. He averaged 9.9 fantasy points per game, but they are also clocking him with 10 games played in the regular season. They aren't just using the final 5 in which he saw significant workload. So you have to keep that in mind as well when you're looking at his fantasy point per game average. It seems low because it is. They are taking in consideration, the 5 games where he, had 4 touches total? Barely played. If you're hesitant about drafting Damien Williams, I wouldn't be. Because he is going to be one of the most productive running backs in the league. Look at Andy Reid's track record with running backs. Dating back to Philadelphia, whether he had 1 or whether he had 3, they were all productive. That trend continued in Kansas City, whether it's Jamal Charles, and when Jamal Charles went down, it was Ware and West, and then it was Kareem Hunt, and then it was Damien Williams. Follow the track record of the coach. Damien Williams will absolutely positively return value to his ADP. And I believe he could be a top 10 running back if he indeed plays a full 16 games this season. A lot of running back news today. Raiders signed Josh Jacobs to his rookie deal, of course, 4 years. There was some issues in a report from earlier in the week or even late last week that there were some issues in the contract language. That is now settled, and Josh Jacobs is signed and ready to go. If I'm taking an early rookie running back, it's going to be David Montgomery. And David Montgomery I did take to pair with Ezekiel Elliott in the Scott Fishbowl draft. Jacob is going 12th pick in the 3rd round, Montgomery 4th pick in the 4th round. They were going back-to-back in terms of running back ADP, 20 and 21. I like Montgomery's situation better primarily because I know that Matt Nagy is an excellent head coach. I know that Matt Nagy committed 270 touches to Jordan Howard, 250 rushing and 20 receiving. And I also know that Matt Nagy handpicked David Montgomery because he wanted a back who can fit his scheme and do everything he wanted to do. If Jordan Howard was that guy, he would still be on the team, but he clearly wasn't. He's now in Philadelphia, and we'll get to that later. David Montgomery is handpicked pick guy. I believe he will handle the bulk of the touches on early downs, and he will also even be active in the passing game, something that they wanted to do with Jordan Howard and couldn't, and something that they will do with David Montgomery. And I'm not down on Josh Jacobs. He has a limited college resume, which could be alarming. He comes with that Alabama reputation, and we see with Alabama backs, they sometimes don't work out or don't work out to the capacity we would like them to. Trent Richardson, TJ Yeldon. It's taken Derrick Henry a little bit of time to get going. So, Josh Jacobs, he's in a great situation, and you never want to see a player get hurt, but that's what we saw in the offseason where Isaiah Crowell, he's done for the year. Yeah, they signed Doug Martin, who cares? They have Jalen Richard, a pass-catching satellite back specialist. Josh Jacobs is in line to be the bell cow for the Oakland Raiders. Now, yes, he's going to cede passing down touches to Jalen Richard. If Josh Jacobs is everything he is expected to be, Doug Martin is merely an insurance policy. My issue, not totally my issue, but the reason why I like David Montgomery more is that he plays on a better team. And I get that the Raiders brought in all, Tyrell Williams and Antonio Brown and J.J. Nelson and a plethora of options. It could take time for this offense to get together and to get going. So if I'm looking for an immediate impact player, if you're in a redraft league, a seasonal league, I like David Montgomery as my top rookie back. In Dynasty, I have Josh Jacobs ranked ahead of Montgomery because the Raiders' situation, if it improves and it lives up to the potential that it could be, then Josh Jacobs could be money in 2020. But for this year, David Montgomery is my top rookie back, and the top rookie back I'm targeting on our seasonal redraft leagues. Moving along to some more running back news. Eagles beat writer Jimmy Kempski believes Jordan Howard will garner the, and I quote, lion's share of the team's short yardage touches, which is something I've been saying all year. Let's pair this with another Jimmy Kempski special, where the beat writer says he believes that Miles Sanders needs to improve in pass protection. Listen, guys, if you listen to the show, you know that I am worried about Miles Sanders and his immediate impact. I've been saying all along that Jordan Howard is the running back I want for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2019. He's a contract year player. I believe he is going to ball out. He is playing behind a better offensive line. The Bears weren't bad, but the Eagles are a top 5, top 6 unit. Bears were about a top 10, top 12 unit. Big difference. I believe that Jordan Howard has north of double-digit touchdown upside. I think he is going to indeed receive the bulk of the early down workload, and I believe he's going to be effective with it, and then he is going to get a free agent contract elsewhere, which is going to set Miles Sanders up to be the 3-down back in 2020. Why am I worried about Miles Sanders this year? It started out with him missing early practices. He had the hamstring issue, and he sat out of, I believe, rookie camp and off-season workouts and OTAs, and they are saying that, he could be back for training camp. And then you had NJ.com's Zach Rosenblatt said it's premature to expect Miles Sanders to be the number 1 back so soon. And now You have Kempski's report saying that, hey, this rookie needs to get better in pass protection. Look at Ronald Jones last year. Couldn't pass protect. And what happened? He was barely active in the game. You didn't even know if he was a healthy scratch half the time because Peyton Barber, who was ineffective a lot of the times, was getting all the workload because you need to protect your quarterback. You have a quarterback like Carson Wentz who, you can blow on him and he can be lost for the year. You have a quarterback as brittle as Carson Wentz. You need to protect him. How are they going to protect him? Jordan Howard, Corey Clement, Wendell Smallwood. If Miles Sanders can't do the job in pass protection, he's not going to see the field because then he is a liability to Carson Wentz. Miles Sanders, and I said this a few minutes ago, he already missed some early practice time with the hamstring. Why is it significant? These young players, especially backs and receivers, they need every rep, every practice rep, every minute of film that they can get. They need to absorb it all. They need to play catch up. Unlike the rest of the team, these rookies aren't in the full off-season mode. Like you see NFL teams, they have workouts in March, April. They're always doing something. They're always reporting, sometimes voluntarily, for something. These rookies are still in school. So when they do go to camp, they need all the reps. They need to get acclimated with the pro level, the speed, the playbook, and everything else. Right now, Miles Sanders is behind the 8 ball, and he's already playing catch-up. Sprinkle in the news about pass protection, and I'm worried about Miles Sanders' immediate fantasy football impact for 2019. It's not a popular take, but I would keep my eyes on this story all day long. Let's talk about ADP for a second. And you see Jordan Howard is sitting with a 5th pick in the 8th round, PPR ADP, 38th back off the board. And Miles Sanders, 9th pick in the 7th round, 35th off the board. They are so damn close. I am taking Jordan Howard 100% of the time. Maybe I gamble with Miles Sanders in best ball because, hey, maybe he does play and he does pop. But if he doesn't, then he is going to be a liability for my season-long team. Miles Sanders in Dynasty, absolutely positively love it because in 2020, he will absolutely positively be the guy. A little bit more Eagles news before we go to another team. Beat writer Michael Kay believes second-round receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has made a major case, and I quote, major case for playing time with his performance during the offseason program. It wouldn't surprise me if Whiteside sees the field early and often because right when the offseason began, before the NFL draft, there were the rumors that the Eagles could trade Nelson Aguilar. The issue is Nelson Aguilar was due a pretty hefty contract, if I'm not mistaken. And I can look that up right now. I believe he was due somewhere around $9 million. And that could be a reason why Nelson Aguilar hasn't been moved because I don't believe he is worth what he's due. And here's the contract. 2019, he's due $9.387 million. This is a player who is very erratic, very inconsistent. He's looked very good at times, and he's looked very bad at times. He is coming off back-to-back seasons where he's had at least 95 targets, 62 receptions, 736 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The 4 touchdowns came last year, which was half of his 2017 total of 8. I know Carson Wentz has a tremendous rapport with Nelson Aguilar. But if Whiteside looks as good as he does, you have to assume that Aguilar, who's going to be a free agent in 2020, they aren't going to bring him back. Aguilar could be a player that is either phased out, possibly moved at the trade deadline. Why not get this rookie on the field if he is living up to the hype? And per the reports from the beat writers, he absolutely is living up to the hype. So Nelson Aguilar is a player I'm worried about immediately, and Arcega-Whiteside is a player I'm stashing on my dynasty rosters and stashing on my deeper season-long rosters, because this is an Eagles team. They're an injury away from Whiteside seeing significant playing time, whether you're talking about Deshaun Jackson. He's had injury issues in the past. He is also getting a little bit older on the back end of his career. Alshon Jeffrey doesn't exactly have the cleanest bill of health either. So somebody goes down, all of a sudden, this Arcega-Whiteside kid could be thrust into a significant role on a pass-heavy team and a very, very good quarterback in Carson Wentz. And I give him a lot of heat because of the injury risk, but when Carson Wentz is on the field, he is one of the best in the NFL. Moving on, and this is a little tidbit. Bills running back Frank Gore is not sure when he'll retire. Is he 36 years old? Bills running back LaShawn McCoy told the press that he was, and I quote, begging Frank Gore to sign with the Bills. Why? I mean, I don't understand that. There is no significant to this report. There's no significance here. It's just puzzling. This Bills backfield is a mess from a fantasy football perspective. Their whole offense outside of Josh Allen is a mess because they have, Yeldon, McCoy, Singletary, Gore. Receivers, Foster, Zay Jones, John Brown, Cole Beasley. It is a mess from a fantasy football perspective. The good thing is a lot of these players are going with value ADPs. You can get them late. So if you're going to take lottery tickets, you can close your eyes and pick one and hope it hits. Or, especially with these running backs in the late round, the wide receivers in the late round, Zay Jones and Foster, John Brown, double up because one of them could pan out. But yeah, that whole Bills, outside of Josh Allen, that whole Bills fantasy football outlook is a mess. However, the one good thing I have out of Buffalo is that the Buffalo News is suggesting that rookie third-round tight end Dawson Knox has a shot to start week 1. I am a big Dawson Knox guy. Tyler Kroft, he could start the year on a PUP list. They lost Charles Clay to the Arizona Cardinals. And they have, who's the second-year guy? Jason Kroom? Dawson Knox, third-round pick, he looks like he could start early. Dawson Knox has a nothing ADP. You can get this player for free. And I'm looking up his ADP now. So bear with me for a second. Yeah, Dawson Knox, I'm on Fantasy Football Calculator, and he doesn't even have an ADP. He is going way past the top 30 in a lot of leagues. Not only is he a tremendous dynasty fantasy football get, if you're in a best ball league, if you're in a Scott Fish Bowl, if you're in any type of deep league, tight end premium, deep bench, get your hands on Dawson Knox. He struggles as a blocker, but he is a pretty good receiver. If Dawson Knox can develop into a better blocker, he will be the tight end 1 in week 1. Even if he doesn't get better as a blocker, he has enough skills as a pass catcher to see significant snaps in passing situations. And who's the best friend of a young quarterback? It's a pass-catching tight end. And we saw reports earlier in the offseason, and this is dating back to June, that Josh Allen has an excellent rapport with Dawson Knox. They instantly clicked, and that is always a good sign. So if you can get your hands on some Dawson Knox capital, I would, sooner rather than later, because if this kid looks good in camp, and if this kid looks good in the preseason, his ADP is going to shoot up to where he might not make too much sense, to where right now you can get him for free. Moving ahead, former Patriots and Bengals back Jeremy Hill. He missed all of last year with an ACL. He is working back to full health and is expected to sign with the team once he's healthy. Barring injury, I don't see him landing back to New England, but, what if he lands back? What if he lands back with the Cincinnati Bengals? What if he lands with a team like the Detroit Lions, who seem to love to collect former Patriots because of the Matt Patricia connection? Kerryon Johnson doesn't have the cleanest bill of health. They signed C.J. Anderson, but he looked out of shape last year, and I know he promised to get himself back into shape. But, Jeremy Hill is going to be a quality ad for one of these NFL teams, and he wasn't a big yards per carry guy, but I believe he scored something like 20 or 25 touchdowns with the Bengals in his first couple of seasons. He is an excellent goal line back. So if a running back goes down somewhere in the NFL and you see a team sign Jeremy Hill, he is a player I would keep my eye on your fantasy waiver wire going into the regular season, because he has touchdown upside when he is healthy, written all over him. I was always a big Jeremy Hill guy for that reason alone. Some quarterback news. Jimmy Garoppolo says he is good to go for the start of training camp, doesn't expect to be placed on a PUP list. You know how I feel about Jimmy Garoppolo. In addition to Garoppolo's healthy return, Tevin Coleman, Deebo Samuel, then you have Kittle and Pettis and Goodwin, and then all of their defensive additions. If Garoppolo can play for a full 16 games, you're going to see the 49ers in the playoffs, probably with a wild card playoff spot, but he is going to significantly change, the fortune of a 49ers franchise that hasn't been very good in recent years. Jimmy Garoppolo, if he plays all year, the 49ers are going to be a playoff team, and I've been saying that all offseason long. Panthers beat writer Brandon Marks reporting Cam Newton is slated, and I quote, slated to be a full participant at the start of training camp. That is good news. I'm not worried about Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton is going to be on the field, and I think we can see a bounce-back year from Cam Newton from a fantasy football perspective. Giants quarterback Eli Manning told the press that he is not rushing to retirement. I mean, they took Daniel Jones with a top 10 pick in the draft. There are rumors that Daniel Jones and Eli Manning will be in a competition. I know Eli denies it, but he also quit his weekly radio spot because he feels that he shouldn't do it if he's not the starting quarterback. I believe Eli is going to start the season. I just don't believe he is going to end the season as the starter. If Eli doesn't retire, he will be looking for a new team in 2020. Titans head coach Mike Vrabel reiterated to the press that Ryan Tannehill's job is as a backup. You know how I feel here. Due to Mariota's durability issues and due to Tannehill's durability issues, we can see a situation kind of like we did last year in Tampa, to where we have musical quarterbacks. We had it with Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston, but that was because of Winston's careless decision-making as a quarterback, more so than anything else. And they rode the hot hand, to whereas with the Titans, it's not so much, ball security and decision-making. It's injuries, to where, hey, Mariota could play 4 games, gets banged up, throw Tannehill in there, he gets banged up, Mariota's ready to come back. It sounds crazy, but we have seen this in the past with the Titans because of Mariota's durability. The only good thing here is Ryan Tannehill is a significant upgrade over Marcus Mariota's previous backups, whether you want to talk about Blaine Gabbert or Matt Castle. At least if Mariota goes down, Tannehill can at least move the football pretty good. He is not as bad as people make him out to be. He is also not as good as what people thought he would be with the Miami Dolphins. A little bit more Titans news. Delanie Walker is unsure whether or not he will open training camp on a PUP list. As long as Delanie Walker is good and on the field in week 1, I am still going to buy him in fantasy. Delanie Walker, 13th tight end off the board, 9th pick in the 12th round. This is a player who has been uber productive since joining the Tennessee Titans a long time ago. He catches 60 passes in his sleep. He has an existing rapport with Marcus Mariota. If Delanie Walker is on the field in week 1, I get he might need a week or 2 to shake off the rust, even if he misses camp in the preseason. But if Delanie Walker is good to go when it counts, Delanie Walker could be a bounce back. And when Mike and I do our bounce back tight end shows, we are going to talk about Delanie Walker. But here's a sneak peek. He joined the Titans in 2013, and since then, he's had at least 60 receptions, 571 yards, and 3 touchdowns. His 60 and 571 was in 2013 in his first year with the club. Since then, he had 63 and 890 in 2014, 94 and 1088 in 2015, 65, 800 and a career-high 7 touchdowns in 2016, and 74, 807 and 3 in 2017. Delanie Walker's floor is 65-71, coming off of his injury and entering his age 35 season. He's 34 right now, but will turn 35 on August 12th. Despite the age, despite coming off the injury, 65-71 and 3, his career lows is a pretty good floor when you take in consideration the volatility at the tight end position from 2018. I am buying Delanie Walker as a tremendous value at his current ADP. A lot of good tight end value in the double-digit rounds. You talk about Olsen, Jimmy Graham, Trey Burton, Kyle Rudolph, Mark Andrews. I mean, you can literally, if you're not targeting one of the top 3 tight ends in Kittle, Ertz, or Kelsey, and me personally, I am punting the position until the double-digit rounds, and I'm getting that late-round value because it will absolutely positively pay off in a big way. As we wrap up the show, a little bit of wide receiver tidbits here. Julio Jones told the press that he will not hold out for a new contract in 2019, and unlike Melvin Gordon, I believe Julio Jones because the Falcons will do right by him. He's a team guy. Expect Julio Jones to be Julio Jones this season. Vikings beat writer Courtney Cronin is reporting Laquan Treadwell is in danger of getting cut before the start of the year.
He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!
How are we surprised here? And Laquan Treadwell is a perfect example of why I pump the brakes a little bit with first-round rookie receivers. Because sometimes you get a Laquan Treadwell or a Justin Blackmon or a Nelson Aguilar. Sometimes they just don't pan out, and Laquan Treadwell, who's had opportunities, and he's had opportunities behind, he can't even earn the wide receiver 3 job on a team to where Diggs and Thielen, they're getting the top coverage. They're getting the double teams. And Laquan Treadwell can't even get going as a wide receiver 3 on that team. There's a problem there. So if Laquan Treadwell gets cut, I'm not surprised whatsoever. The wide receiver 3 on the Minnesota Vikings, and I've said this all off season long, is a combination of Irv Smith and Kyle Rudolph. We saw the Colts use Doyle and Ebron as their wide receiver 3, and even wide receiver 2 at times last year, because of all the lack of depth and the underwhelming depth they had on their wide receiver depth chart. Same thing in Minnesota. Outside of Diggs and Thielen, underwhelming depth at the wide receiver position, which means the tight ends will continue to be very, very busy in Minnesota. Jaguars beat writer Mike DeRocco does not believe Terrell Pryor will make the 53-man roster. Terrell Pryor is on his last leg in the NFL. I know teams are giving him a shot because of his outstanding athletic ability. However, it hasn't panned out, whether he was a quarterback or a receiver. I know he had one pretty good year as a receiver, but that was about it. I think that was an anomaly, and this could be the last we see of Terrell Pryor for a long time if he gets cut from Jacksonville.
Nothing for you.
Bengals wide receiver John Ross says he wants to reinvent himself for the 2019 season. I mean, I'm a John Ross guy. He is a player that hasn't really been what I thought he could be. He caught quite a few touchdowns last season when A.J. Green went down. Maybe the new head coach, Zach Taylor, maybe he could squeeze the potential out of John Ross. He is going at an absolutely nothing ADP, way back in the double-digit rounds. If you want to take a flyer on Ross because you believe Zach Taylor will employ additional 3-wide sets, and you believe that Zach Taylor can squeeze a little bit out of John Ross, or if you want to get John Ross because you don't trust A.J. Green, and if A.J. Green goes down, John Ross will see significant playing time, go right ahead. The upside is there if he can put it all together and get on the straight and narrow, but there is a lot of ifs with John Ross. And that's about it for today's show. A lot of news, a lot of headlines, a lot of fantasy football implications, and these are the type of shows I like to do. I love reacting to the news. I'm a reactionist. I'm an opinionist. That is the industry we're in. So I really hope you'd enjoyed it. If you're listening right now in podcast format, Apple Podcast platforms especially, please subscribe to the show. Please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review telling everyone why you love the show and why we are the best damn fantasy football podcast on the planet where fantasy meets reality. Because the more subscriptions, ratings, and reviews that we get, the more people we can reach. And in the end, we want to help each and every one of you win fantasy football championships, dominate your leagues, and absolutely positively crush the competition. And yes, I said it earlier in the week. In the past week or so, we saw quite a few ratings and reviews, 5-star ratings and 5-star reviews, really kind words come through on Apple Podcasts. So thank you for that. And thank you for to anyone who may write a review after listening to this program. We will maintain the culture of winning we built here in the FF Faceoff for over 3 years. Or close to 3 years since our inception. Our anniversary is coming up in August, and over 200 episodes. Until next time, where you are going to see a tight end bounce back show, or on Saturday, I'm going to have a very special guest Patrick Murphy from fantasyfootballking.com. He is my employer. I work for them. I do some fantasy consulting on the side, drafts, season-long managements, hourly consultations, you name it, we do it. Patrick Murphy, who has been heard on the great Roto Underworld podcast with the great Podfather, my guy, the Podfather. Patrick Murphy is going to join me on the show, and we are going to talk a little mock draft. We are going to talk a little bit of fantasy football strategy. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to bring that to you. Until next time, follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. Follow the show at the FF Faceoff. Follow us on all of the top social media platforms, and enjoy the rest of your Football Thursday.
Get to Old Navy now, because this week only there's a new red hot deal every single day. Plus up to 50% off store-wide. That's up to 50% off your favorite Old Navy styles. Also get $10 off your next purchase when you buy online and pick up in store. So hurry in and get today's wow-worthy fashion pieces at a price you won't believe. Only at Old Navy. Valid 7/12-19, select styles only. $10 off valid in-store only. One-time use. Excludes clearance, gift card, register lane items, jewelry. Get to Old Navy now, because this week only there's a new red hot deal every single day. Plus up to 50% off store-wide. That's up to 50% off your favorite Old Navy styles. Also get $10 off your next purchase when you buy online and pick up in store. So hurry in and get today's wow-worthy fashion pieces at a price you won't believe. Only at Old Navy. Valid 7/12-19, select styles only. $10 off valid in-store only. One-time use. Excludes clearance, gift card, register lane items, jewelry.